Rise and conquer. Faith, strength, victory.
The story of Jesus, the feeding of the 5,000. When God multiplies what you have. There are moments in life when what we have seems too small, too little, too late, not enough to make a difference. And in those moments, doubt begins to grow. We look at our resources, our strength, our situation, and we wonder, how could this ever be enough? But one day, in a quiet place far from the city, Jesus showed something that would change how people see lack forever. The Bible tells us that a large crowd followed Jesus. They came from different places. Some came out of curiosity. Some came in need. Some came carrying pain, sickness, and questions. And Jesus did not send them away. He welcomed them. He taught them. He healed them. Hour after hour, the crowd stayed, listening, watching, receiving, until the day began to fade and a problem appeared. The disciples came to Jesus and said, "This is a remote place, and it's getting late. Send the people away so they can find food." From their perspective, it made sense. There were thousands of people, no markets nearby, no food prepared, no solution visible. But Jesus answered with something unexpected. "You give them something to eat." The disciples looked around, confused, overwhelmed, and they found only one small offering, 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. That was it. Not enough for thousands, not even close. And in that moment, they faced the same question many people face today. What I have is too small. How could it matter? Jesus took what they had, not what they wished they had, not what they lacked, but what was already in their hands. He looked to heaven, he gave thanks, and then he broke the bread, and something began to happen. The food did not run out. It multiplied again and again and again, until everyone had eaten, not just a little, but enough, more than enough. The Bible says they were satisfied, and when it was over, there were leftovers. This was not just about food. It was about faith. It was about trust. It was about understanding that what seems small in our hands becomes more than enough in God's hands. The feeding of the 5,000 is not only a story about provision, it is a revelation about how God works in the middle of human limitation. It challenges the way we see our own lives, especially in moments when everything feels insufficient. There are seasons where people feel like what they have is not enough to move forward, not enough strength to continue, not enough resources to change their situation, not enough clarity to make the right decisions. And slowly, that feeling of not enough becomes a mindset that limits faith itself. But this moment in the life of Jesus breaks that belief completely. It shows us that God does not begin with abundance. He begins with availability. One of the deepest truths in this passage is that the miracle did not start when the bread multiplied. It started when the small offering was given. The miracle began in the moment of surrender. Before anything changed in the physical world, something shifted in the spiritual reality. The little that existed was placed into the hands of Jesus, and that act alone transformed everything that followed. This speaks directly to our lives today. Many people are waiting for God to act, but they are holding back what they already have. They are waiting for more clarity, more confidence, more certainty. But God often asks for something much simpler. Trust Him with what is already in your hands. Another powerful layer of this story is the way Jesus gave thanks before the miracle happened. He did not wait for the multiplication to begin before expressing gratitude. He gave thanks while the situation still looked limited. This reveals a mindset of faith that goes beyond circumstances. Gratitude, in this context, is not a reaction, it is a declaration. It is the ability to recognize that God is already working, even when nothing has visibly changed yet. And this challenges the way many people live today. It is easy to be thankful after things improve. It is much harder to be thankful while still in the middle of uncertainty. Yet this is exactly where faith becomes real. The reaction of the disciples also reflects something deeply human. They saw numbers. They saw impossibility. They saw the gap between what was needed and what was available. And in many ways, this is how people approach their own challenges. They measure their problems with logic, with calculation, with visible evidence. But Jesus was not operating from limitation. He was operating from trust in the Father. This creates a powerful contrast between human perspective and divine perspective. Where we see limitation, God sees opportunity. Where we see lack, God sees the beginning of provision. There is also something deeply personal in this miracle. Jesus did not perform it from a distance. He involved the disciples. He allowed them to distribute the food. He made them part of the process. This shows that God does not only want to provide for us, He wants to work through us. Even in our imperfections, even in our doubts, He invites us to participate in what He is doing. This transforms the way we see our role in life. We are not just observers of God's work, we are participants in it. The fact that everyone was satisfied is another powerful detail. The miracle was not partial, it was complete. No one was left hungry. No one was forgotten. This reveals the nature of God's care. He does not overlook people. He does not provide just enough to survive. He provides in a way that restores, that fills, that satisfies. And then, beyond that, there were leftovers. This detail is not accidental. It is intentional. It reveals abundance. It reveals overflow. It reveals that when God provides, He does not operate in scarcity. He operates in fullness. For many people watching this message, there may be a quiet question in their hearts. What I have, is it enough? And the honest answer, from a human perspective, is often no. It may not seem enough. It may not feel sufficient. But this story shifts the focus away from what we have and places it on who God is. Because the miracle is not dependent on the size of the resource. It is dependent on the power of the one who holds it. This changes everything. It means that your effort is not wasted. Your faith is not small. Your situation is not beyond change. What matters is not how much you have, but what you do with it. And when what you have is placed into the hands of God, it is no longer limited. It becomes multiplied.